Shalom, brothers and sisters, and Yah. I wanted to make this video concerning a vision that I did have in year 2013. It was the summer months. As I had discussed earlier, I had all these dreams, many of them recorded, but I had lost the recordings. Many of them were written. I have lost them. But I feel as though Yah is putting on my heart to sound the alarm, to blow the trumpet. In which rather I have beseeched him in forgiveness and lamentation, because he has revealed many things to me, and I've been very laxed on getting the information out there. Yeah, I would talk to people about it, people who are interested in the subject, face to face, but it's really been put on my heart to create this YouTube channel just to speak on the things that I've been shown. So this particular vision I had in 2013, which was a very active year spiritually for me. I was shown many visions. And I'm going to go ahead and post a few because I have some time. But this one will be concerning the earthquake in California, in which I was shown. On this particular day when I was reading and studying the scriptures, I had prayed. I usually pray before and after I open the holy books for understanding and things of that nature, so I may be able to digest what I'm reading. But we all know there is no private interpretation of the scriptures. So we must know the correct connotations and, correct breakdowns of the scriptures when we read them. But I'm going to get back on topic. I had ended my studying and prayed, and I had beseeched the Father that he would mercifully reveal to me things to come. And a deep sleep came over me. A tiredness came over me. That's how it usually happens. A deep tiredness came over me. And I went ahead and laid down. Then the dream began. In this dream, I was standing in the street. It was silent. It was bright, broad daylight. It was very bright, and the sun was out. There was not a cloud in the sky. As I began moving through this terrain, no one told me this was California. This is going to be a little weird to explain. Nor did I know that I would be shown California. But in the spirit realm, you just know. That's the best way I can tell you. I just knew I was in California. What part, I'm not too sure, but I knew absolutely without a shadow of a doubt. It was like a fact, in my vision. I just knew in the spirit. I just knew I was in California. And anybody who has visions and dreams, they'll understand what I mean. Because many scoffers and mockers will be like, oh, well, how do you know where you were at? You know what I mean? Well, when you're in the spirit, it's like you just have a knowing. You're just aware, It's like a supernatural knowledge. But as I'm walking through this terrain, as I said, it was quiet. It was a dead silence at first. It wasn't much wind. The sun was out. There was not a cloud in the sky that I could see. It appeared to be maybe 1 or 2 in the evening. The peak of the day. And I began to look around at the destruction. There was no electricity. It was just silent, and all you could hear was all I heard was it was definitely an aura of sorrow. And it was an aura of sorrow, whimpering, but it was mostly quiet. It was quiet. It was like, the best way I can explain it would be like how a ghost town would be. It was quiet, but it was much death, And I think that's why it was so quiet, because many people were dead. I didn't see not one other live person There's one other thing I want to say before I get into what I actually seen as I was walking through. I didn't see not one other person in this vision that was alive walking around. It was just me exploring the territory. Buildings were smashed, of course. It was utter destruction. But I want to explain one major thing that I was shown. You know how when there is an earthquake, there's uneven levelings within the ground. You know, like the ground mutates. Like I guess it has something to do with like the plates under the earth that collide in an earthquake, and it's like it throws some levels of the ground high and brings other ones low. Usually when we see this, it's like maybe half a foot to maybe 2 feet of unleveling. Well, as I was walking around California, the roads were like these uneven and unleveled plains, and the ground were like cliffs. That's how deep they were. That's how powerful this earthquake was, I guess. They were like cliffs. You know, I'd be walking. The terrain was like that of like a wilderness, yo. Like a but even a wilderness had more. Certain wildernesses have more even structure. You know, I can't explain it. It was just utter destruction. I'm trying to explain it the best I can. You know, as I was walking and observing these huge cracks in the ground, you know, I looked down into one of the cracks in the ground, and it was huge. I'd say in width, maybe like 10 to 15 feet. You felt if you couldn't really walk over them. These long cracks in the ground, you couldn't really walk over them. The terrain was just so destroyed. It was bad. And upon looking down over one of these cracks in the ground, I did walk up to one of these long cracks. You know, the classic, rips in the ground when earthquakes happen. At least from when they illustrate it on TV and stuff like that. It's like a rip in the ground, a jagged rip. These rips were like 10 to 15 feet wide, and I had walked up to one of them, one of these huge ripped cracks in the ground, and looked down into the crack, and I noticed a train down there. It was like if anybody's from the Washington, D.C. or surrounding areas, or even New York, they look like subway cars. Anybody who's in it from any major cities who has underground metro services or rail services for commuters, you'll know what I mean as I describe this. These cars were twisted and mangled like tin cans under the ground. And I'm seeing this as I'm looking into the crack in the ground that was caused by the earthquake. And each car on the train had flickering lights. Like, have you ever seen a Metro Rail car, train car? And they have the destination, like a marquee on each of the cars on the train. It's like a marquee that tells you the ending destination of that train. And it was just flickering on and off. And these train cars were just twisted and mangled and destroyed. And as I was looking at this train underneath the ground that I could see within the big humongous crack in the ground, it was given to my understanding that it was a lot of people dead on the train. I never knew that. I've never been to California. I don't know if they have underground rail services there. I wouldn't know. I've never been. Since then, I had ran into a guy on Facebook, and we was talking about scriptures and stuff, and he was telling me he's from Cali, and I told him he should get out of California. And I asked him if they had underground rail services in California, and he did verify that they did. So in one sense, it's like this was like a small validation for me to what I saw in my dream, because well, those who've never been to California and all we see is what's on TV, we know of the street cars and the street trolleys, like the above ground little commuter trains that ride in the streets of San Francisco and stuff like that. Like, I've seen that in movies and things of that nature, but I never seen the underground, like a metro rail system. But evidently, I guess there's some cities in California that do have that. And if anybody does know, please feel free to comment and share with me, these particular areas and cities that may have that underground rail service, because it might be best. And even if you do know yourself, start warning people, tell them to get away from that area, because I believe that's an area that's going to be decimated through this earthquake. I believe it'll be 10.0 in nature on a Richter scale. But I was just walking around this destroyed city. It was silent, broad daylight. There was whimpering here and there. But it was a lot of death. I didn't see not one other person alive. And let's say I really want to re-emphasize on the unleveling of the ground. They were as cliffs. Remember I was saying earlier how the layers on the ground would like overlap, and some would go high and some would go low because of the nature of earthquakes and the plates hitting each other, I guess. These cracks in the ground were like, not cracks, but these uneven portions of ground were like cliffs. Literally, if you on TV and movies, we see an earthquake, it's like a foot to, 2 feet, 6 inches to maybe a foot and a half or 2 feet of unleveling. These unlevelings in the ground that I can revisualize from my remembrance, they were like cliffs. Let me give like a guess on how, 30, 20, they was from like 10 to, I guess, up to 40 to 45 feet in height differences. If you just kind of kept walking and just stepped off one of these unlevelings, you could die. You could fall and die. That's the best way I can explain it. But that's what I was shown in year 2013, the summer of, concerning an earthquake that is going to hit California. I pray for all of the righteous remnant that is within that area, that they may be led out of it for safety and survival, because we all know that the Almighty Yahweh does cover his flock. He does give protection to his children and leads them before his destruction comes. And he does reveal before he does the things that he do. He always reveals to his prophets that the remnant might be warned. But all praises to Yeshua HaMashiach and the sovereign Yahweh, the holy are the names. And I pray that some understanding and wisdom was gained out of this revelation concerning California. Thank you for tuning in.